Welcome back. Today we're going to play with the intake manifold for my supercharged Jeep ZJ with a 4-liter. Right now it's got the horseshoe manifold on it, or the curved manifold. And I used to think, because everyone said supposedly they're better, but Newcomer Racing's put out a video, or Horsepower Monster, whoever covered Newcomer Racing's dyno stuff. The straight runner, at least in his testing, made more power up top with... You really couldn't run the dyno low enough to see the exchange and loss of torque down low, so I'm not worried about it. I want to make a plenum for my straight runner manifold, but I want to make it two-piece so that I can change it and modify it easier for the future. Because right now I want to put throttle body up top, but later on I might want to put it in the front. And also I'd like to make it so it's easier to port, take it apart, port it. Radius entry is a lot better, just a lot more options. So we're gonna get into that. Right now I've got the plenum cut off of it. So I didn't want to lose that much runner, but we're kind of constricted by, let's see, the brake master cylinder and things that are over here for plenum to get that much more room. So I decided to cut it off right here. I didn't want to mess with the power steering pump, so we cut off about 3/4 to 1 inch of runner, which is fine. To make it a two-piece, I'm going to have to move the throttle body over to the plenum, so this will be gone. I'll have to replumb my intercooler and some things, but I think it'll be beneficial. Let's see what else we got. You see, we're not really losing that much runner. Out here it looks like we're losing a good chunk, but once you roll it in, it's just a little bit. So now that it's cut off, my plan is to mill it, get all these at the same height, chop this out of here. I need to measure the height. Well, I'm going to put the throttle body where I want, because right now it's barely above the runners, and I want my plate to come up a good bit. I want the plenum to be a little taller, and above and below that, so we can have a nice radius in everywhere from every angle as much as possible. So the throttle body height's going to have to move up because the plenum roof's going to be taller. So knock this out of there, shave all this stuff, and then I'll be playing on SolidWorks, because I'm not going to cut all this crap out by hand. I could, I don't want to. So I'm going to map it all out, and then probably, I've been using Send Cut Send. You can send them a DXF file, they'll laser it out for you, they'll even tap stuff for you, lots of options. So once I get this measured flat and get all my measurements, I'm going to start playing on the computer and start getting that program, or start getting that modeled up the way I want it. And it's nice being able to use a computer instead of having to do cardboard everything. But not everyone has access to that. I'm sure there's cheaper softwares, but I use it at work, so I get to use it for free. But that's the plan, so I'm going to start cutting this down, and then we'll start playing on the computer. Well, I want to play on the computer. Once I get it where I want, I'll show you that. And then I'll order the stuff, and we'll wait for it to come in. But let's get to it. We're ready to clean up and start measuring stuff. sunk this down 3/8 of an inch and this down 3/8 of an inch because I plan on using a 3/8 plate. This ultimately will probably get cut out, but while milling this side, you can see this side wiggling over here a lot because there's not that much left. So I'll wait to cut that out. I don't know that that's actually helping it stay in one piece, but for alignment purposes, I'll leave that alone right now. Also, I want my plate to sit in here. I'll weld this ear back to it too. Another reason I want to do it as a two-piece is because, one, it'd be a pain to weld in between these unless I filled this gap and then put a plate and capped it off. But if you do that, you really can't get that much radius into anything unless you use a really thick plate, and building that up would suck. So my plan is to sink a piece of 3/8 aluminum in between all this, bevel this edge and weld it like you would a header. Weld the inside and just stitch the back for support. And then I can stack another piece of 3/8 on top of it for the plenum side and bolt those two together, which will give me plenty of room to radius it. Because I want to end up, let's see, 1/2 inch is probably going to be too much right there. Yeah, I'll probably end up having a 3/8 radius in between these ones. This one I can get away with a 1/2. I don't know that the 1/2 is necessary. Let me grab my 3/8. Alright, I think I got a 7/16 too. So to get that radius, I need that height. So if you use a thin plate, you can't get that height. So when I stack two 3/8 plates, I'll have plenty of room to play with to get the radius where I want. So that's another reason for doing a two-piece. Also, if you don't want to port it yet, or you want to change something later, or if you want to change the plenum later, you can. So that's why I'm doing it. So now I'm going to take this thing outside, hose it off, start measuring stuff, and start modeling. This is what I've come up with so far. I'll still have to add more things, but what I'm going to do now is just show you the basics, and then I'm going to go take the horseshoe intake manifold off of my Jeep and put on the straight runner manifold that would be up to here, so I can measure off of the runners to see if this will physically fit, because this is just how I feel ideally would be good. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to fit. This is fake world. We can make this however we want. And I hope in Grand Cherokee, I hope it'll fit Wranglers and everything else when it's done. I'll have to measure some things to see the differences. The biggest thing, brake booster and master cylinder are right over here, right alongside this, so that's kind of limiting how far the plenum can come out. Firewall's back here. I know this side should clear, but the power steering pump is right here also. So I think the only problem might be the power steering hose, the hard line may touch it. I may have to push that out of the way a little bit, but I think ideally this is good. So you can see the two pieces here. This is one 3/8 plate. This is another 3/8 plate that the box plenum is welded onto. The reason being, like I said, I could weld the inside like a header and then just stitch the runners on for support and then bolt in through the back. Of course, I have to make a gasket. The main reason for doing that is so that I can try to make this disappear. Come on, load up. There we go. Hide. Main reason is so that I can make this nice radius entry. I can only get away with 3/8, but this is the basics of what I want to do. So now we're going to go over to the Jeep and start seeing how it looks. I've got a video on how to remove and reinstall the intake manifold when I went from the straight runner to the horseshoe manifold, so I'm not going to go over all those steps. I'm just going to show you once I get the intake off and I'll have the other one on with a couple bolts in it. That's where you're going to come back in and see how everything's going to fit, just so we can measure off of all these points. Another idea I've had, this is a stock 4-liter pattern. Now my thought was, people have been using the LM7 like 5.3 LS throttle bodies. They're 75 millimeters. I don't see any reason to go that big with this engine. I don't really think you can go too big, except for your drivability, because on a 75 millimeter part throttle, that little tip in is a hell of a lot more than this 60 something, or than the 60. But I do want to make it easier, so I think I'm going to use the 4.7 liter throttle body as a 3-bolt, so I'll probably change this. I think, I'd have to look it back up, I think it's like a 65 millimeter or something like that. I think that's a fair compromise. So I don't want to spend money on that painless unit that I saw on a Newcomer Racing, whatever, Horsepower Monster channel. Whoever covered that, I'm sure that's expensive. The 65 millimeter at pull apart is 40 bucks. So I'd rather make it use that, and then if I want to, I can make an easy adapter to put a Jeep one, a 4-liter one, back on it if I wanted that. And of course, we're going to have to put some holes in here for bungs, for like the brake booster. I need one for the blow-off valve, and whatever else we may need. I think that's all I need. The map sensor's in the throttle body. I may make a provision to put it external, but that's about it. Well, it's mocked up in there, and it looks like we're going to be just fine. Power steering, once it's tightened up, it's going to be fine. The box stops an inch off of this wall, which will slide just under the power steering hose. Won't have to mess with that, so we'll be good there. The height here is fine, it's 4 inches. The height back here is fine, and the depth. This is going to come out 4 1/4, which puts it about right here, about 3/4 to an inch off of that fitting. Now yours will look different. I've deleted the ABS and stuff, so this should work in mine. I'm gonna have to look at the original line. Should have been even shallower, so I'm not worried about the original lines being deeper. Anyway, our problem is this wall right here, on this ledge on the firewall. Our 1 inch clears it, but it's almost touching. It's really close. So for mine, my trans mount's probably okay. It's probably not. No, that's crap. I think last time I worked on it, it was pretty well crapped out whenever I dropped the Jeep on the transfer case and broke it. So I'm sure the back of the engine's hanging down just a little bit, but I'd also like to keep in consideration if someone did like a 1 inch or did a drop transfer case to help with the rear drive shaft angle, that would lean this closer into the firewall. So I'm probably going to shorten that from 1 inch to 3/4, so it'll be tight, but it'll still have enough room. But I think that's going to work, and reminding myself playing with the horseshoe, it's not that hard to get off of there, but this one is definitely going to be easier to take off and on. You can just reach things much better. Well, my next step is I'm going to go to pull apart, if they're open. Hopefully they're still open. I'm going to get a 4.7 throttle body so I can go ahead and model up the plate. I'll definitely do that this round. I'll also go over how to modify the 4.7 throttle body to fit with the factory throttle connections, cruise control, the TV cable, all that stuff in a future video. Anyway, thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe.